Hello there. I am Faye Robinson T, mental health nurse, associate counseling psychologist, and edutainer. You're tuned into the Sherlock Robinson YouTube channel. This is where you can hear the positive vibes. This is where persons can be motivated to make life even better for themselves and for the generation after them. So remember to like, share, subscribe, and keep on listening, keep on viewing the Sherlock Robinson YouTube channel. Take care.
Good afternoon, Nurse Faye Robinson T.
Good afternoon, Mr. Robinson.
How are you doing, man?
I am fine, thank you.
Well, it's a pleasure of mine
Yes, sir, good afternoon.
to be here this afternoon to really have a little chat with you. Yes, because I recognize that you have a very interesting story to tell. And what we do with these stories, we try to put them out on this platform to help persons in general, but I'm not targeting our men, which we are losing in various negative reasons. Yes, so we're not only catering for men, but for general, but realize that a lot of negativity swirling around in the social media platform. So we're trying to use our thing now to kind of push some positive vibration. We seek to empower, educate, inform, influence persons in a positive way, and let people understand that people like you would have gone through the rigors, but you stick to the task and you made it. So you want to tell persons who are currently going through and probably might be thinking of giving up or throwing it away, just to keep fighting on, because if they continue and keep their eyes on the prize, then it's a guarantee that they can reap good success.
That's correct.
I'm a product of it, and I'm proud to be here. But for the viewers, Nurse, who is Nurse Robinson, or Joy Robinson? Where were you from? Yes, Faye Robinson, right? Where are you from?
Right, so Faye Robinson T is proper Jamaican. I was born in the hills of Clarendon, almost in the center of the island, a place called Mesa River. Last of 7 children. And I grew up as a proper tomboy.
Yes.
Yes, I went to primary school, of course. Back then we had common entrance, and thereafter, having succeeded in common entrance, I went to Clarendon College, where I did my C-Sex subjects.
Yes.
Now, I am one of those, maybe very few, I'm not sure if I'm the only, who would have just left high school at a very young age and entered the classroom as a pre-trained teacher, still being a teenager myself.
Wow.
Right, so that became the platform for a lot of the things I do now.
Okay.
Right, so 2 years in education kind of has my heart tied to the educational system, but having taught it then, I went on to Kingston School of Nursing, where I did my registered nursing. Worked just for a year at Anderton Hospital, but discovered that general nursing is not for me.
Okay.
On account of which I asked for a transfer to Bellevue Hospital.
Yes.
So I spent 9 years at Bellevue Hospital.
Okay.
Right. In my tenure there, I did my first degree in guidance and counseling. And having left and come to work in Clarendon as a community mental health officer, which I've done for the past 14, almost 15 years. While doing that, I pursued my master's in counseling psychology.
Okay.
So it's quite a mix of experiences
Yes.
that I've garnered over time.
So just to backtrack a bit. So while growing up in Mesa River, right?
Yes.
How was the life for you then, as a youngster growing up in the community?
Right, so I was born in Mesa River, but I actually grew up in Crooked River, which is down the road, some distance down. It was fun. It was a real farming community. My aunt, that's my father's sister with whom I grew, she was a farmer. You know, and I was with her everywhere. So the climbing of the orange trees and the mango trees and getting the mangoes to the markets during the summers, which was Brownstone Market, it was fun for me to do. Yes, it would have been seen as work, but I had this disposition that whatever I did, I did it for fun. I put some comedy into it. So riding the mule, riding the donkey, it was fun for me. I mean, I would even challenge myself in trying to pat the donkey and, you know, draw the guard rope and stuff like that. But the irony is, though many children would have been afraid of these animals, and my cousin especially, she seemed not to have had a good time with them. You know, I remember her being bit by the donkey or the mule kicking at her on one occasion, but I had no problem with these animals, you know. I remember recently passing a couple of young men attending to a donkey, and I asked, so you know how to curry-comb the donkey? They said, what? I said, yes, man, you know about curry-combing donkey. No, miss, what's that? So I took the opportunity to educate them on how you clean the donkey's coat by simply getting a sardine can, punching some holes in it with a nail, and you use that to scrape. You know, so we call it curry-combing back in the day. So those experiences for me were really good, going to fetch water because water supply was poor. So you had to go walk sometimes a mile to go and get water. Yes, man, and then the thing of going to the river. You go down to the river, wash the clothes, spread what can dry, you run up to the house with the dry set and you come back down. It was normal life for us, so it didn't seem like laborious. This was just life. You know, but it taught me, and I thought, I think many others in my time, the sense of resilience, the sense of discipline and a good work ethic.
Responsibility.
Oh yes, which I needed all of that. Because to now be able to balance life as a wife, a mother of 3, and also balancing work, first in the public sector, now in the private sector. Much of what I do now, I got my grounding in those formative years.
So you're a fully prepared, well-trained soldier.
I believe so.
For the task ahead.
I've been around the walls a few times.
Yes.
Right.
So while attending primary school, was it primary school?
Oh, it was Cricket River Audit School.
Oh, Cricket River Audit.
Yes.
So were you seen as a teacher's pet, or you were just a hard worker who just beat the books to get the grades and so forth?
What happened in my time, just like normal, I wasn't seen as a teacher's pet, but what the teachers did was that they would build a group of us in class, and in each of the classes who were outstanding in our academics. And back then, the idea, I'll use the term mate teaching or peer teaching. So when we would finish our task, they would now assign us to assist those who were not as fast. So even that thing of camaraderie and looking up in your brother's keeper, you know, right? So it's not so much like teacher's pet, but you're coming from a home that you can't farm food, you know. You go to school to learn. And does it mean there was no time to play? Yes, there was time to play. But this was a little part of me now, being a proper tomboy, right? When everybody else would be doing 4-H on a Friday, I would be outside playing cricket because I was just the person who would be on my feet, going, you know. So, but there were times to play.
Maybe because now you would be like a Stephanie Taylor, probably being caught the West Indies team and so forth.
Can I tell you? Because even Sunday I was in my church community, we had a Porter Road, and it was about rallying the community through cricket. And it's good old Jamaican coconut bats and sponge ball we were using. Children and adults and everybody, they were out. There's a community in Manchester. But it was fun, and it feels like something I want to do again, to also help our youth.
And I think, you know, we need to get back to some of those traditional things now, because I think it help youngsters to become more, as I mentioned before, more balanced, more responsible, have a sense of awareness and more empowered. Because these kids nowadays, not beating them down because this is just what is happening, but a lot of them are now stuck in the house. So we used to go outside and play, they're now playing on the computers or on the gadgets, and I don't think it really helps much. And just to mention a bit about the health, I think while we're walking to school and carrying water and running up and down and so forth. I think that helped us, as back then, because we would burn a lot of calories.
Of course.
So even when we drink the sweet drinks and the sugar water with the lime and them kind of things, and the suck and we just run it off and burn the calories and all of those things.
Obesity was not a problem
Right.
at all.
These kids now, they drink these sweet things and they just stay one place with their fingers, which I don't think it is really good for them, but it is what it is. So I think if we can rally the communities and get them involved in some of these things, even for once a month, once a week, whatever, I think it will go far away.
I believe that very strongly. And I am the kind of parent who really believes in the Jamaican village
Yes.
that we once had. Call me old-fashioned, but that's fine. Because if we don't have a sense of what it really means to be Jamaican, we're going to get lost in this global village.
Yeah.
We already have out of many one people. We are not a nation, we are a people that is a culmination of many nations.
Yes.
Right? And so we have to look at what is it that makes us outstanding as Jamaicans. And part of that, I believe, is our rich heritage, where
Yes, the
respect
roots.
for the elderly,
Sure.
yes, the storytelling where you hear the traditions,
Yes.
or cultural times that we'd have where we'd share and pass things on. As I was sharing with them on Sunday at this outer road thing, the idea is, I grew up in a community where on Sunday afternoons, the community comes out and you sit on the embankment and
Yes.
the men are out there in their white cricketed suits, because then Test cricket was a real thing. The days of Gus Logie and Joel Gunn and those guys, when you didn't have TV so much, but you had a radio, that little black radio, and you had to listen to cricket.
And based on how they were describing the commentary at the time, it seemed as if you were at the match,
Of
watching the
course.
match.
Of course.
This commentary was very good.
Yes, and so I believe this kind of thing of rebuilding the village,
Yes.
the village that we have common values, yes, respect. A child doesn't pass you, stare you in the face and step past you. No, a child will say hello. And you yourself will see the child too, and you'll say good morning,
Sure.
leading by example. And I do believe a village like that will help our children to be safer, right? And each one looks out for the other. I know there are many people in the village who may not be the type that we want to have, but if those of us who are standing for values and principles that are in keeping with social norms, if we would stand out and model for our children
Yes.
and show kindness, healthy kindness, well, can kindness be unhealthy? Well, there are those who manipulate kindness for their means, but we have to demonstrate what clean affection for our children, for our people, yes, and so that's one of the things that I really want to see us to return to the sense of what the Jamaican village is.
But while I agree on this, I think with the inception of social media and the gadgets, these things have really become a real distraction. Yes, they are good because we use them to do positive things and to kind of entertain ourselves at time when we're by ourselves. But I think it is too much of a distraction. So you find out that even the baby born now, first thing they're waiting for is the phone, and you wonder if something in them, or there's an instinct or something, attach them to the gadget. Once it start to move about and become sensitive. The older children for example, my boys, they're stuck to it and you try to get them away from it, but as they turn their back, then they're back at it.
I don't think what we need.
And it doesn't, yes, it doesn't give them enough time to really learn about the community, to learn about history, and even for our Christian principle also, it distracts them also. So it's not just distract them in just one way, it distract them in comprehensively, allow them to move away from even the tradition and becoming more multicultural and take on some things where you wonder what benefit do they get from these things, what they are doing.
I think what we need is a sense of balance. And the best way for us to get that is to really examine how we do parenting.
Sure.
For me, as I mentioned, I have 3 boys.
Yes.
I love farming, having grown up in a farming community, as I said, yeah, and learning from, I can remember at age 6 trying to clear my own little spot to plant my sugar cane,
Yeah.
right? And I wasn't instructed, but I was modeling
Yes.
what I saw around me, right? And so modeling that behavior of learning to clear somewhere, plant something early, I do that with my boys. Each of my children can identify at home a tree they planted.
Okay.
Just recently, I said to them, no, this is how we did it. You see the sugar in the bag. Let's look at where it came from. And so that old-fashioned Jamaican squeezer,
Yes.
or cane mill that you cut the hole in the tree and you have the leverage, we built one at home.
Yeah.
And did the juicing so they can see where we're coming from. Told them about the time when sugar was scarce and what people had to do was extract the juice from the cane and use that to sweeten tea or porridge or whatever it was. We have to let them know. I can recall seeing people using the hammer to break the stone to build the road. And I use that to say, look, the seniors we see today are the ones who cut the roads, pack them with the stones so that today we can drive on Barber Green and feel comfortable. So though they may not be so strong and they may not be what we want them to look like, we must have respect for them. So parenting, if we teach these little principles in our homes, then you find that collectively the nation will benefit.
And one of the things you know is, as I mentioned of that, one of the things that really happen now is to know how the farmer generation has really worked hard. You know, fight for our freedom, fight for liberty, fight for us to become a free people, a free nation, that we can enjoy our human rights. And it's like you have some person now coming along, don't appreciate what was being done by the former, you know, our forefathers.
Mm-hmm.
And what they're doing now, they're trying to destroy what were being built out of blood, sweat and tears, and they don't appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then they just see as if it's just another thing. But if those people did not fought hard for our rights, then we don't know what would have become today.
Yeah. And you see, it goes back to like what happened in scripture,
Yes.
where there arose a new king in Egypt who did not know Joseph.
Yeah.
So we have some people who we call never see come see. That's the Jamaican expression. People with the Esau spirit who despise their birthright.
Yes.
Scorn the idea of being Jamaican because they want to be something else that they really are not. Right? But we have to begin to own and hone who we are as a people. We can't be so into the quick fix and want it now that we sacrifice the future well-being of our nation on the altar of the immediate gratification that we can get from some quick money and some quick contracts or whatever. No, we have to think long-term. Anybody who really, really knows me well will hear my little mantra, and my colleagues in psychiatry say, you know, it's my delusion, but I tell them they are the ones who are deluded. But I'll say to people, I own Jamaica.
Yes.
I own it. And I said, blame that on my English teacher. Because if I say this is my country, then mine is a personal pronoun. And the bottom line behind it is, if it is that you own something, then once you're in your right mind, you will take care of what you own.
That's true.
So if we begin to own this as our country,
Yes.
this is my country, then it means I don't drive along the street and toss the garbage through my vehicle window. It means I don't, because I'm in a government vehicle, I slam the door or I drive anyhow I want to drive. No.
Things.
What this country is mine, so whatever I do should be towards protecting the
Yes.
future of this country. And I wish for those who are watching, those who are viewing, that you take on this consideration. Whether you're home or in the diaspora, Jamaica is your country. If this is the land of your birth, is your country, you own it. So own it and own it. Yes? What it means to be really Jamaican. We can't afford to despise our birthright. We're powerful people. Yes?
So let's moving on. You mentioned about primary school.
Right.
And you did the common entrance, right?
Oh yes.
And you were successful to transition to Clarendon College.
Correct.
So what was it like going to high school back then?
High school back then.
What are some of the challenges and highlight moments?
Yes, those were the days when we had what was called the little E20 buses,
Yes.
or the big Leland buses, and you have to walk from your home to come down by a certain time to catch the bus to go to school. Yes, and it may sound a little way off, but back then the fare was like 30 cents, you know. That's some time ago.
I used to get 30 cents from my lunch money.
You see, of course, that was money.
Immediately spent a month out of primary school.
That was money, right? And so it would mean going on the bus, sometimes packed up because you have only two buses, right?
Yeah.
And it's carrying students and adults and people going to the market and all of that. So for the first 2 years of my high school, I traveled from Crooked River to Chapelton, and it meant still having to balance the chores. So 5:30 every morning, I can recall myself being there cleaning the floor, because the real Jamaican thing, you tidy your house every day, right? So I'll be in the dining room at 5:30 listening back to the Bible and doing my duties, and then making sure that you go and they get the water. You go down to the gully to bathe or to get the water to come home to bathe, do your chores, get ready, go to school. Right? And saving was an ethic you developed as well.
Yes.
Yes, from those days of having the little red and white saving People's Cooperative Bank. It was bank book. You start putting your little 5 cents, 1 cent, 10 cents, whatever in it. So going to high school now, when you're getting like $5 to go to school, you put aside 20 cents. And you try to let the money serve you, and you save something up, right? So that thing of getting to school on time, when you go to school, focus on your work. I love sports, but I realized that, look, after school, I have chores to go home and do. I can't stick around. So you go and you're dutiful and diligent in what you do. By the time having now got those 2 foundational years of learning to balance, by the time I got to 3rd form now, I was back home with my parents, and so I was boarding in another community, which was penance. So what did it mean? I had to learn how to wash for myself, comb my hair, balance my time, study, and manage without anybody over me. You understand? And my Christian faith, which I gave my heart to the Lord at age 12, was one of my supportive factors in not being distracted with the peer pressure that came at school. So at school, the Inter-Schools Christian Fellowship, ISCF, was a big part of what I did.
I wasn't about that.
Yes, ma'am.
Spawn in secondary time.
Of course, I can proudly say that the current principal of Manchester High School was one of the sponsors when I was in ISCF, and just
Mr. Gabriel.
Mr. Gabriel himself, right? Great math teacher, great man of God, and now I'm sure a great principal. So it speaks as well to how impactful people can be on you as a child, because I'm a big adult now, but I still remember the positive impact he had on us. Yes, and his wife now was also a part of ISCF at the time, right? So ISCF, sometimes money wasn't always there. We had to learn to manage what we had. And I can share this because I'm not ashamed of it. I'm way past it now, but I remember even 5th form, sometimes when things got a little rocky, or I would try to stretch the money so that I don't have to go home every 3 weeks. I go home on the 4th week.
Yeah.
By then, of course, I was aware that my dad was not as young as he used to be. So in my mind, that look, I'm going to see how I can stretch it. And so sometimes I would, get the cheese crunches and bag juice for break time, and that's a big break, you have money.
Yeah, man.
Lunchtime now, and I regarded it how I say special, because nowadays special is rum and boom, but back then, special was cocoa bread and patty. If you could afford that for $3, you were rich.
Quarter bread and butter.
No man, it's special. We had them, man. The patty and the cocoa bread. If you could afford that, wow. And so there are days when you couldn't afford that, couldn't afford the patty and the drink. And so I would have a nice break, man. And then ISCF is where I go at lunchtime, nobody would know. And I remember boys saw me on the corridors in 5th form. God had it that I had just topped 5th form in my biology grades. Yes, and for whatever reason, he walked up to me and he said, "You see your Margo? A pair of bag juice and biscuit you feed on." And the only answer I had for him was, "But my bright on you go." That's all I could say to him, right? Inside my heart, I thought, whoa, because yes, I'm still not very big, I'm still fine, but I'm healthy, I'm not going to the doctor for it.
Yes.
But I had something that I could say to him. Yes, that was a fact, and that was rude. I could say, never mind, I may be going through some rough times financially, but listen, I know what I'm here for. Today, I can buy what I want.
Sure.
Because God has been faithful to allow me to finish high school and then get a job. Yeah, my dad would have wanted me to do sixth form and do something else, but I knew from was like age 6 that I wanted to be a nurse. So I knew at the time sixth form was not a must, and I was so aware that Dad isn't so young anymore.
Yes.
Yes, and he had his fair share of not being well. My mom, God bless her, she was a real household technician, as we'd call
So,
it.
your mom is still alive?
Oh yes, my
Yeah,
mom.
big girl, man.
Hey, Mama Sheila. Yes, man. Mom is alive and
How much
well.
is that?
She'll be 87 this year. Dad passed in 2017. I had the privilege of him living with me for the last few
My
months.
condolences.
Yes. I tell you, the way he passed and all of that, I was able to get closure easily, having known that I did the best I could. And the staff at the First Junior Hospital, they were so good. It was like the textbook end of life care
Yes.
and how you attend to the family. So I had the opportunity to sit there beside my dad, to sing and to to cry and to laugh at the same time as the whole process went on. So, that's not with us, but Mom is here, Mom is with you.
I just think that the thing is, you're not the only one who speaks well of Percy Junior Hospital, because I had a cousin who was there and tell you, they were good. We just have to big up Percy Junior Hospital. Big up all the
Yes,
staff.
indeed.
Bless up on yourself.
That's right. And we must acknowledge good when there is good, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, nurse. So you mentioned about your primary journey, your high school journey, and you mentioned earlier that you attend university. You did your first degree.
Yes.
So, you know that a lot of persons have struggles going into college or university, financial struggles, but they still hold fast, and despite of what happening, really have food and so forth. So how was your journey?
Interesting one. So, as I mentioned, having worked immediately on exit from high school, I saved. I can remember when I was working, my salary was like $4,500 per month. But I was able to accumulate at least $12,000 when I was ready to go off to School of Nursing. But at the time, the government had an arrangement where nurses did not have to pay tuition fee, and we got what was referred to as a stipend. So every other week we'd get a stipend so we could buy our little things that we needed. And of course, housing and food was provided until final year, when you had to find somewhere else to stay, but it meant a little increase on your stipend.
Yes.
And God was good to me, so I got somewhere near to school. I could walk. I didn't have to take taxi and all of that. So having completed that, and as I mentioned, I spent a year at Town Hospital. Then going to Bellevue Hospital, it was while I was there that I decided that I wanted to pursue something in counseling. And what it meant was that I went to school in the days and worked at night. By then I was a charge nurse, as in ward sister.
Yes.
And it also meant sometimes serving as a night supervisor in the nursing office. And so for 8 months, I was working night duty, getting to work at 8.
Wow.
Leaving work at 7:30 in the mornings to get to Jamaica Theological Seminary on Constant Spring Road by 8 o'clock for class. And I was driving, right? And I must use this opportunity as well to pick up the Wallace family, because these were brethren from church who really embraced me. I was living in Kingston. I didn't have family in Kingston per se,
Yes.
but my church family was family for me. And so the Wallaces who lived nearby, sometimes when I would be leaving school and leaving work to head to school, they ensured that I had my breakfast. So that also helped to keep a little more change in my pocket.
Yes.
Right, as I went on paying school fees and all of that, and God was faithful right through my first degree. After having done that, though, as in being trained as a guidance counselor, I didn't work in the field. I continued in nursing until eventually I left Bellevue Hospital after 9 years and came back to Clarendon. My husband's a minister. Hi, Pastor Tambarity. He's a minister, and so we came back to take up our first ministry opportunity in Portland Cottage, right?
It's in Clarendon.
Portland Cottage, Clarendon, and we lived in Portland Cottage, but served at Rocky Point as well, Galilee Gospel Assembly. And so it was during that time that I made the application and was accepted to work as a community mental health officer in my own parish of Clarendon. So eventually in the year 2017, that was after my dad's passing and all that. Later in the year, I decided to pursue my master's in counseling psychology. That too was a miracle,
Yes.
But God was faithful in providing. And let me tell you, for those of you who are students, work hard and be disciplined and respectful. Scholarships come not only through academia, but sometimes your display of leadership qualities or various talents can earn you scholarships. And that was part of what also helped me through the Caribbean Graduate School of Theology. Hi, Dr. Carr and all the team there, right? That's one of the things that was helpful for me along my journey.
Yes.
I got several scholarships. And mind you, I was on study leave for a while as well. So I benefited from study leave. But and the Nurses Association of Jamaica supports its own. So there are scholarship offerings through that as well. So for those of you who are not in associations, get into associations because you may be able to benefit through them to further your education or other pursuits you may have. So these are some of the things that helped me along the journey, but I can take it right back to my grounding in childhood of learning to manage my time and manage my resources such as money and the great resource of relationships with people.
So there's another follow-up question. You made mention that you worked at Bellevue Hospital.
I did.
A lot of persons have this notion that, in a Jamaica term, I pay my people down there.
Yes.
How would you describe your 9 years working there along mental challenged persons?
I think the best way to summarize that is to say it was a sobering experience. Sobering experience in the sense that I really got to appreciate the things that we often take for granted. Yes? And to realize as well that it's really a thin line. It's more than just a cliche, it's a reality. It's a thin line between sanity and insanity. And it's really such that we should not judge anybody. Right? You may see somebody loitering on the streets, wearing things that are, or not wearing any clothes sometimes, or hoarding stuff and garbage, what we call garbage. But that might have been a university student. That might be a professional. That might have been a pastor. That might have been somebody who worked overseas for years and sent money here, thinking that they had an investment going on, and when they got here, all the pictures of the lovely houses was just a piece of bare land.
And that is so true, because I don't know if you know this renowned journalist Bobby Free.
Oh yes, I know.
Who, whenever they listen to Bobby Free, have to have a dictionary beside.
He started sports commentary.
Yes. And it is said that Bobby Free was living on the street of Kingston at some point. Another great cricketer, Patrick Patterson.
Oh, I remember.
At one point, he was the fastest bowler in the world. He's another sad story, that in on the street. And there are some others, so it is true that sometimes we don't know persons, the background, what really caused them to found themselves in this situation. So we have to try to appreciate and having a social background myself. I try not to be judgmental, and I try to understand the situation, not knowing but understand, so that I won't really come down hard on people at times, because it not necessarily mean that because you're not eating out of that garbage bin or whatever, you don't have mental issues. These things are real, you know?
Yeah, because mental health really exists on a continuum. There's none of us who can say, I've always been 100% at my best mentally. We have all had our moments of being down and our moments of being up, right? And that's just the nature of life, okay? But we must realize that persons who develop mental illness, not that they're born with some kind of neurological issue, but they develop a mental illness like schizophrenia or maybe bipolar disorder, major depression. They develop that along the course of life. That doesn't take away their intellect. So if it is that they are getting appropriate treatment and the family support that they need or the social support, they can recover and they can do well. There are some people who are referred to as chronic persistent mentally ill, but oftentimes those would have been persons who did not get the help they needed in time and did not get consistent help. Some of course don't have the insight, so they don't think they need any help. So where that attention that was necessary was not available in time and consistently, then we may end up seeing more chronic persistent mentally ill persons. Of course, substance use disorders also complicates the whole thing in terms of what came first, the chicken or the egg. Is it that he had the propensity to be ill, or she, and then the substance use brought it on, or was it the substance use alone? Whichever it is, the point is it's a human being who didn't even ask to become ill, yeah? But who has now developed a disorder that can be treated. We're living in great times. There are so many options now for treating mental disorders that before the 1950s did not exist. And so much has happened in this field over the past, well, almost 60 years, I must say. Yes?
And that is so true, nurse, because I know of this youngster, well, he was much older than me, but we used to call him Mad Dave. And every time you see Mad Dave, he might salute or apparently he was a soldier or maybe cadet or something. And for many years I was going to primary school, and they would leave primary schools and we go to high school. He was a madman, dirty clothes, but him always a pose as a soldier, salute and all of those march, you know. And some years ago his family reached out to him, you know. And today he was a sober person. Sober because he didn't get the help that was necessary. And he come back sane as ever. They've married and have children and migrate.
Look at that.
Yeah, man,
Yes.
that's where they're good.
Yes, that's an applause. That's excellent.
Yes.
And kudos to that family. More families need to do that. Yes?
Yes, nurse. It seems as if your time at Bellevue Hospital was really a rewarding one.
Yes,
So
it was.
you spoke so highly about it that, you know.
Yes, it was. There was so much that I learned, right? And I would never trade those years for anything.
So transition from there now into, you say you came back into the nursing field, right?
Right, community mental health.
Yeah, coming back
nursing, right?
to your soul of the parish Clarendon. How is it now?
Right, so I came back to Clarendon in 2008, and I've worked right up until last year as a community mental health officer. What does that mean? It means that I would work in the health centers alongside the psychiatrists or other doctors operating psychiatry, and my main task would have been to, continue the assessment and follow up for patients who would have been seen at hospital. And having come to the clinic now, the doctor would have seen them at least twice, and then we as mental health officers would do the follow-up or assist with the follow-up in the clinic, and also go and do home visits for them, right? Which meant traversing the parish of Clarendon from Portland Cottage all the way up to Crofts Hill, Spalding, right across the parish, sometimes even crossing territorial borders based on where the clients are. And that didn't just include ordinary home visits. But there are times when clients would relapse, they get really sick in what we would call an acute episode again, and it would mean having to sometimes restrain them to get them to hospital. Now, I know this is international. May I say that the Mental Health Act in Jamaica does give us that opportunity to restrain and take persons in for involuntary admission where they are deemed to be a danger to themselves or to others in community. So it's something that we were covered to do, right? My experience as a community mental health officer, thankfully, and all through my years, 24 years in psychiatry, I have never been attacked by a patient.
Wow,
right?
that's good.
Never been attacked. And what I have found is that even those skills I cultivated and my interpersonal relationship skills that I cultivated growing up from childhood right up and sticking around persons who could model for me appropriate behavior added to the Christian principles I got in my life. There are some of the things that, and of course, training is critical, right? Because we have to learn de-escalation techniques. But just being able to reach someone when they're at, let me say, quote unquote, their worst, right? And not find yourself being injured in the process is something that I really celebrate and give God thanks for. And in so doing, I must say also thanks to the community mental health team from Clarendon, because it takes a team. My million pound supervisor would say teamwork makes the dream work. So it would take a team to be able to work effectively and not find yourself being hurt by somebody who in the moment is out of touch with reality and maybe very aggressive, right? So it was a rich and rewarding experience for me serving community. One of the things that I did a lot as a community mental health officer was I was the voice in many instances for mental health promotion. So I did quite a number of school visits. Again, having been a guidance counselor as well, though practicing as a nurse, and as I mentioned, my years in the classroom, I still had this connection with teaching and working with people. So that helped me in doing a lot of mental health promotions in the public sector while I was working as a mental health officer.
There's a follow-up question. I mentioned about working in the love community of Clarendon, So what you really do now?
All right, good. So last September, I made the bold move of resigning my job with the Southern Regional Health Authority, and more so Clarendon Health Department, and moving on to what I believe God was calling me to work privately as a counselor.
Okay.
And so currently I operate T's De-Stress Services.
You need to say it.
Yes.
Put it out
T's De-Stress Services in Spalding and in Maypen, where I offer counseling services to individuals and groups, right? Children who may be having behavioral issues, couples who may be having marital issues, but just there to help people walk through the day-to-day issues that may be impacting them, grief and loss. Yes, and then having worked in psychiatry also gives me that added edge to give families the support they may need when they're trying to cope with having a relative with mental illness.
Yes.
Where, having insight and understanding into the different medications I don't prescribe, but I can help them understand all the illness, what the illness is about, how it's managed, and how they need to, follow up and take all the necessary guidelines that they get in order to do very well. So that's part of what I do, but I also collaborate with an educator to provide academic support for students. So in my space, there is as an area where students who may have difficulties with literacy and numeracy, struggling at the particular grade levels from primary school up, they can come in, we have a suite of computers, they can get personalized lessons. So you may have 10 students in this space doing 10 different lessons at the same time. One teacher who is there monitoring, because each lesson is tailored for the children. Right? And so when persons register for that program, the parent has the privilege of indicating what's the child's area of weakness. So we can tailor the lessons accordingly. So we have therapy, we have academic support, and then here's the big thing now. we find that there are many students who are having behavioral issues in school, and sometimes the schools lack the resources to really deal with these, and suspensions or expulsion sometimes is what they resort to. We're saying we're not condoning negative behaviors, but every child is good. We don't have problem children, we have children with problems. So they can come into a space, they can get therapy, and they can also get mentorship through skills training.
Okay.
Some of our children will learn, they can learn, but the approach to teaching is what we may have to adjust. And the public sector in particular doesn't have all the resources to do all the work. So the public-private sector mix can better afford the kind of help. So yes, there is a cost to it. People would have been expected to pay, but what we're bringing on board are skilled adults, males and females, who are, and here's where my bias to Christian comes in, because I'm looking at the value system that comes with it, and to say, look, let's incorporate skills, let's help these children with electronic repairs, learning a little electrical repairs, a little plumbing, yes? I remember when I spoke to a man who does construction, he said, oh really, I was thinking about it. Yes man, I will help them. And it turns out that his place is near to our business place. Okay. So with parental consent, of course, because everybody who comes in for therapy or who is going to be in the mentorship program, it's definitely through parental consent, but children will come into the space except the parents register them for it. And so what we do is to try to provide a package. So you're getting the remedial or academic support. You're getting therapy, be it individual or group, because there are ways that groups can benefit. You know, the altruism of groups and then holding each other accountable is part of what we do. We can my training affords me the ability to manage the group so that they're safe in a group setting, right? But there is housekeeping that we want them to learn, and little food preparation and so on. So of course we're having dialogue with agencies too, such as Heart Trust NTA now is what I want to bring on board.
I was about to say that you could partner with the Heart Trust NTA.
Yes, I had the opportunity of speaking to a career development officer who told me the kind of support that they offer in situations like this. So we're still a young business, only started September of last year, but the vision is a big one.
Alright, the Prime Minister mentioned about Heart Trust. Some of the public is going to be free of cost. So that will create, I think will create more opportunities, you know, for person to probably get a stipend, and so I don't think they have much other challenges to see that they can attend an organized institution.
Right, well, our targeted group is particularly those who could not matriculate into Heart Trust by virtue of age, because you can't get in until you're 17.
Okay.
But the research shows that we have 35% of this population falls within the age cohort, or 35% of those within the age cohort of 14 and 24 are unschooled, unskilled, unemployed. So what do we do with our 14 to 16-year-olds who are not in school, whether by choice, whether by parental neglect, or whether by having committed some kind of offense that has resulted with the consequence of being out of school? What do we do with them? And this is what we're looking at. This could serve as a somewhat intermediary program. And when they come in, and the way the package is set, they must leave us with something.
Sure.
They must leave us with something, you know, that will allow them to recognize that they too have a place in society, and a positive place.
So after when they're through here, do they get a certificate to show that they have been to an institution?
Very good question, because we are not operating as a replacement for school.
Yeah, I know.
Right, but yes, that's part of it, and especially with the dialoguing with Heart Trust.
Yes.
One thing that they do, for example, is that those who will be helping the students, if they're not certified but they're experienced and very good at their skill, they can get their certification on the job certification they call it. But for the students now, we're still reworking the program. It's just really about to emerge now. And so that's a consideration that they will have, because our aim is, if it's even to get to your city and guilds, you must leave with something.
Sure.
Yes, and to see, as I mentioned, before 17 you don't get a Heart Trust NTA enrollment, but with special arrangement, what can we do to let them see that, look, I have done something? What will be the evidence that you deserve to matriculate back into school, even to the part of this program? We will have to present them with something to say they complete such therapy and training, and by virtue of that.
So do you probably do a little bit of rhetorical justice in the whole counseling thing?
Or like restorational justice, you mean?
Yes, you do a little of it in your training for youngsters.
Okay, so it was not a formal module, but conflict management is part of what we have been taught.
Okay.
So yes, emotional intelligence brings conflict management as part of the whole package. So when we look at EI, we bring that part in the communication skills, the conflict management skills, we bring that in to help our, not just students, but people on a whole, to move forward in a healthier way.
Okay. Well, yes, as we move closer to the closing off, I think I have a final question for you, because COVID has came and really did some horrible things, but there are also some lessons that was being learned from this whole global pandemic. What lesson did you learn from it, being while you were in the public sector work?
Right. The COVID pandemic was a great leveler of the playing field, in the sense that one of the things that really stood out most for me is the usefulness of neighborliness.
Yes.
Just to consider that there would have been people who had their money,
Yes.
but they could not spend it. But we had a little thing in the past that said, man is carried through the world. So you imagine if you had money, but you just think, hey, my money is it, and so nobody else is important. When COVID came, and there would be nobody to go and get you food because you couldn't go. Yes? The whole thing of no man is an island became even more real when people had to be stuck in their homes or in their communities under lockdown, quarantine, and recognizing then that, it was a privilege to be able to go out there and interact, even with some people who we didn't think might have been up to our standard or fit in our league. But hey, those may be the very ones who we have to depend on now. Yes? So for me, the COVID, another thing about it is even attending church. Because when we have the privilege of going, sometimes we take it for granted, but in COVID, many people suffered not being able to go out to church, to see the brethren. Yes, online is there, but there's nothing like the human connection. In psychology, it is you're taught that when people hug or touch, it releases these chemicals that we call pheromones. The chemistry between us, the pheromonal communication.
And this is a major nurse. I remember I heard about this story about Mother Teresa. There was this gentleman who was, mentally challenged and out on the street. And Mother Teresa just goes by, saw him, give him a hug. And that has changed his entire life. He became sane and was back to normal life.
And that's one thing we're robbed of. In fact, even now, there's still persons who are cautious of touching persons because we are still aware that it's endemic essentially now. But it brought its lessons, and I'm grateful to have come through unscathed. It was also a great time for self-discovery, because for me, I could discover some of the things, that I said, really, I can paint. I can actually cut the fabric and create my curtains, I can do stuff, So that, I believe too, entrepreneurship sprung up a lot during that time, right? So it forced us to think differently. It forced me as well to think differently. And maybe part of the reason to why I was bold enough to take this step, because my entrepreneurial spirit just emerged.
Well, to all extent, nurse, what I'm doing here now, COVID has helped to influence what I'm doing here. Yes. But my experience in the COVID, when it just happened, I did stress out. I wake up the night, have Like me have nightmares and them something if I think about my children, them maybe just young children. But after a while I became as time goes by you kind of understand more and understand that COVID was not a death threat as all the media was trying to hype it up to let it sound. And I work right through COVID. Yeah man, I work right through COVID. I work, and as a matter of fact I was transferred to Motivational Health Center doing the data entry. So when I hear like Dr. Williams or Dr. Bear Walters giving like a statistic, I was one of those persons when anything was doing the data entry, getting at the system, And I have to work like from weekends, Sundays, after work, just to try to play a lot of backlog that was there.
We came through.
Yes.
We came through. For some it was seen as a death sentence, for others it was seen as a lifeline.
And you take a lot of opportunities for some persons.
I believe.
Yes. But finally, nurse, in closing off now, what advice do you have for the public? And as I mentioned earlier, we targeting our men,
Yes.
But not that we're not speaking about ladies and children, but I think women has been engaged in a lot of negativity. What advice do you have to give to them in Jamaica in general?
Right. I want our men to recognize that by virtue of being man, you are made to manage. Yes? But you can't manage if you are out of alignment. Yes? So God made man, and God gave man the duty to lead, not to domineer, but to lead, to take charge. Yes? And so men who are out of alignment cannot appropriately take charge. And I want to encourage our men to know yourself, man. You're not a dog. You're not a chopper. Right? You're not a scammer. No. You're a man made in the image of God. And by virtue of that, you have purpose. So I want to encourage you to begin to explore the positive things in yourself. Because I don't maintain that anybody is a bad person. We have people with bad experiences, but we have people who are good. So find the good in you, nurture the good in you. You may say, boy, things just got bad for me, nothing never got wrong. There is something, even one thing that is an exception, that you can find that you say, boy, that worked for me, And you use that to build from it. Develop a heart of gratitude. Speak what is positive over your life and into somebody else. Invest in a life, right? And that will make your life even more meaningful. Remember that whatever you do is being modeled by the generation after you, right? So let us leave, and men, leave a good heritage so that the boys today can be able to say, boy, that's a man who will touch my life in a positive way, all right? Because the seeds we sow today will definitely reap the fruit tomorrow. And the thing about it is that we're going to reap just what we sowed and more than we sow, later than we sow, as the great preacher Charles Stanley once said. So that's the word I have for men. Locate yourself as being man. Yeah, not anything less than that.
Nurse Fee Robinson T.
Yes.
It was my privilege to be here this afternoon to really allow you to share your story and to encourage, persons. And I hope that person who will watch this video, they will be inspired, they will be motivated, they will be regenerated, re-energized, and understand that life does not stop based on what they think, but life continues based on what you put into it. So, viewers, this is the Sherlock Holmes YouTube channel. Please remember to share, subscribe, like, watch, and leave a comment. And stay tuned for more interesting programs coming at you. So until then, be good. God bless. Respect.